The Pan-African Parliament's latest session starts in earnest today as it moves towards election of leadership tomorrow. Now, elections at last year's sitting collapsed amid scenes of chaos. So let's cross now to our reporter, Khayelihle Khumalo, who is there for us. Khayelihle, good morning. So who can forget the indelible scenes that played out at the Pan-African Parliament last year?
Well, that's right, Sakina. It was a sheer pandemonium, as of course the members of Parliament right here in Midrand at the Pan-African Parliament, they were not able to reach a consensus in terms of the election of the leadership. But also we do know that Southern African Bloc has really been talking about this principle of rotation. So they've really, this time around, been emboldened by the African Union Executive Council of the Foreign Affairs Ministers, who are really supporting now the principle of rotating the leadership to make sure that Southern Africa as well does get an opportunity, but also other regions as well, like your West Africa, where other previous presidential candidates and other leaders have really just been coming from that part of the continent, East Africa as well. So it's going to be really a very interesting week. It's going to be a moment of redemption for this institution that has always been perceived to be very toothless in terms of its work, really just always characterized by a number of controversies where there has been a lot of wasteful expenditure and many other issues as well, where some previous leaders, other presidents who were in charge, they've been accused of using really the funds in a way that is not good in terms of the very core mandate of the parliament. So the official opening is going to open quite soon, in about an hour or so. But also we're going to hear from the African Union Commission chairperson, Mr. Faki Mohammed. We know that he was really disturbed by those events last year where the House really collapsed, where the members really were quite, we saw also the insults being held, some MPs being punched. So a very chaotic scene. But having spoken to quite a number of MPs this time around, a lot of them really, Sakina, do understand the gravity of the situation, the myriad of challenges facing the continent. We've seen a tsunami of coups in West Africa. We see the issue of food insecurity once again becoming also a major concern, the rising energy prices. So they really do understand that they really need to play their role this time around.
Khayelihle, in terms of who will be in attendance and quite from Faki, anybody else notable?
Well, we do understand that, Sakina, of course, from the AU level, quite a very high level delegation is arriving in a matter of time or so, but also someone who's going to be very central in the election of the new leadership during the course of the week will be the AU Legal Council team that is going to explain the modalities and explain the election process, how it's going to be run to avoid the chaotic scenes that we saw. But we do understand that the current AU chairperson, Macky Sall, and Senegalese president, was supposed to come. He's currently, of course, seized with the G7 summit in Germany, but he's going to be represented by the AU chairperson, the commission chairperson, Mr. Faki Mohammed. So he's going to give an address and really remind the MPs in terms of their mandates. But also one of the concerning aspects here, Sakina, is around the issue of the ratification of Malabo Protocol. So once that protocol is ratified by all the 47 members of this parliament, it's going to enable the Pan-African Parliament to have the powers, really to have the legislative powers, as opposed to being an advisory body that is not really having the very significant amount of powers in terms of making sure that they hold the AU accountable, but also playing a very significant role around the consolidation of democracy, promotion of human rights in the continent.
What have been the stumbling blocks to that, though, Kaya? If you think about, the people who are then deployed, as it were, to serve on the Pan-African Parliament, and now talks about them being able to hold accountable their leaders, so to speak. What have been the stumbling blocks to that?
So, Sakina, this is an institution really that has been plagued by a number of challenges in terms of the institutions that are within the parliament itself. But in the main, really, it's because there's quite a lot of institutions within the body of the African Union. And over times, I mean, you talk about the AU Executive Council made up of the foreign affairs ministers, and then you do have the council as well, that is consists of the heads of state. So this is a parliament really, but also the hesitance from the member states to make sure that they take seriously this particular protocol. So that has been a challenge for this parliament. But also, this is an institution. You know, you go back to 2004, the very inaugural session where you had the Tanzanian President Gertrude Mongela. So the vision was really to make sure that it's really given those powers, but there hasn't been really that keen interest from the member states. The issue of the weak institutions really have been affecting the work of this particular parliament. But during the course of the day or so, we're going to see the swearing in of the new members as well, who have been elected from the member states. But also, I don't know at this particular point in time, Sakina, the issue of the election, I mean, it's quite important. And joining us now is one of the candidates. Of course, that's Mr. Albino Aboch. I think if you may just kindly come down. So, a very important time for this institution, sir. We spoke to you earlier and you were talking about your vision around Malabo Protocol to make sure that it's given the teeth, it's well capacitated. From your perspective, what's hindering that process from going ahead?
Thank you very much. Good morning. Yes, it is indeed. There are two ways for the Malabo Protocol. One, it has to be ratified. You need 28 countries, and I do believe we have about 14 now, 13. You need a leader who will put a process and unifying force within the PAP. Then he and she will be in a position to talk to Northern Africa, Southern Africa, East and West and Central. So if you have a wrong leader, then we will wait another 20 years. If Paul Kagame of Rwanda can do it within a year, why are we wasting more than 20 years? So I do believe if I'm given a chance in less than a year and a half, I will be able to do that.
And just once again, sir, you from East Africa and South Sudan to be precise. Do you think this time around we won't see those embarrassing scenes, the pandemonium unfolding? Are we seeing now the MPs really understanding that they're meeting at a critical time where there's quite a number of challenges facing the continent, the issues around global recession and other challenges? So do they understand now the task at hand?
Well, indeed, we are a parliamentarian. We live based on the rule and the procedures. You live here in South Africa. Do they do an amendment of the rule in the house? Somewhere in the room somewhere? So we do not believe those who are trying to change the rule in the back door and impose it on the people, it will not be accepted. Take that one into account. My country, the Republic of South Sudan, have questioned the issue of the modalities where they are trying to enforce two regions only. That decision was not discussed. And we have told the chair of the African Union, if it was discussed, bring it here. Show us the video.
Okay. Maybe just in the interest of time, sir, just shortly, the issue of the rotation across the regions, just briefly. What's your stance around that?
Nobody is against the rotation. Rotation, the principle of rotation is something very good. It is your turn today, tomorrow it is my turn. But there is no rule which is actually applied backward. Rules are applied progressively. Okay. So we are for the rotation, but there are two ways to do the rotation. One is the Malabo Protocol to be ratified. It is in the basic books of the Pan-African Parliament. The second one is we amended our rule and the procedure so we can accommodate the rotation. We do not have it now. Okay. So how do you actually apply the rotation?
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So Sakina, quite a number of challenges really facing this institution, but most MPs are quite adamant that things will be slightly different. So they're very cautiously optimistic. So we'll see how it's going to play out during the course of the week.
Indeed, we shall. And from that interview, it seems as though that contentious issue from last year will continue. But we'll park it there for the time being. Thanks so much, Khayelihle Khumalo, speaking to us there from Midrand, where the headquarters of the Pan-African Parliament is situated.